Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's version of the crop update here that we've got the joint plant nutrient and grain divisions here at the Andersons. Just seeing what we've got going here this week. Feels like here we've got a nice week ahead of us weather-wise. We've had a pretty good week the last couple weeks in terms of getting some of these later planted beans emerged and going. In the soybean front, we've got wheat harvest upon us here in the next week and a half. And the corn dynamic, it feels like the corn's off and growing. What are you guys seeing from your perspective just on the corn-soybean dynamic here this week?
Yeah, so the corn's doing extremely well. We've got some issues with compaction because of the drier weather that we kind of had earlier last week. We've gotten some rains in the Midwest that's helped that out some. Starter is showing to be proving it's giving everybody a lot of dividends. We're seeing on the 80-20 starter front a 10-inch advantage on the corn. Our 100% Infer Max on the Farm Center side is showing a whole leaf stage ahead of the no starter, so starters really worked out extremely well this year.
And then some of the pictures I know we were talking earlier this week is some of the starter versus no starter in our plots are seeing a 10-inch difference across the whole field. Not just cherry picked, we're not saying one plant's taller, but across the whole field, starter versus no starter, about 10 inches or one whole growth stage ahead.
Yeah, so it's really nice when you're driving by the especially the Walton plot, and you can pick out the check. I always like it when check doesn't win.
I don't think anyone
always
likes
better,
it when check
yes.
wins. So then you mentioned too, you were seeing some hail damage in your area.
Yeah, so we did have some strong storms move through central Indiana last week, and had some hail damage, actually quite a bit of hail damage. Luckily, the corn is small this year, so we're about a month behind, 30 days behind. And most of the hail damage is going to be superficial. I believe it's going to grow out of it nicely. Before V5, me and Jess were talking this morning, before V5 you can literally cut it off, and maybe you can share a little bit what we saw at the greenhouse.
So one important thing to note with corn is up until the V4, V5 growth stage, that growing point is underneath the ground. So you can actually chop off the corn and it will grow back. And I'm seeing that firsthand with one of my greenhouse studies. I just tissue tested it on Wednesday, so I topped the whole top part of the plant off.
So you literally cut the whole plant
cut the whole plant
Yes.
off. There was nothing left. And then I went back this morning and the corn is the same size as when I left on Wednesday. I was really impressed and surprised by those results. I knew it would grow back, but I didn't think it'd grow back that well.
That's going to actually turn into a nice
Yeah.
hail study. Hopefully, we can parlay that into that.
Right. So how are things looking over on the grain wheat side of things for you guys?
Wheat side of things, harvest is progressing. It feels like we're gonna start seeing our first few loads of wheat here in Northwest Ohio come to the facility. Be sure and take a look at your discount schedules, just where you typically haul your wheat to in terms of shrink and moisture, as well as the overall vomitoxin situation from a discount perspective. So far, we're hearing some vomitoxin out there, just depending on the amount of fungicide that was applied. So I think vomitoxin is going to be out there. It's just trying to mitigate against that, and hopefully we aren't as severe as what we've been in the past.
Unfortunately, I had a client text me this weekend saying that they were hitting 3 parts per million, even with treated wheat. So that's high.
Yeah, it'll be there, and it'll be just a matter of mitigating against that and doing our best to work through that scenario here this year. So from a wheat dynamic, I mean, it's probably a little premature to tell exactly where yields are going to be and where we're going to be so far, just with very, very little harvest happening so far. But we'll know a lot more next week, I'm sure, once we dive in and get through this week here.
What about the corn numbers, the acres?
Yeah, the USDA did come out with updated numbers there the very last week of June on Friday the 28th, and they did surprise us a bit with the overall corn acreage number being at 91.7 million acres. The March number was 92.7, but they did adjust it back a little bit. The overall trade was expecting that to be significantly less than that 91.7, but we'll see if they adjust that here going forward. There's talk of some resurveying going on here the 1st of July, and that could change the numbers there then for the August report. So we really won't see a whole lot, I don't expect, over the next few weeks here in the USDA reports and things like that, but we will. They definitely could change things on us as well. So a little bit of a surprise there at the end of June, but the market's mellowed out a little bit here since those numbers came out. So.
Well, that's all we have for you today. So thank you for listening to our weekly crop report. If you have any questions on any products or services, just feel free to contact a representative from the Andersons. Thank you. See you next week.